Thank you, Emily. Our next featured reader is Evelyne.
Woo!
Evelyne Aikman is an MFA candidate in fiction at SFSU. She grew up in Nova Scotia and is a chronic apologizer. She's already sorry about this reading and everything else that will ever happen. She loves juice. Please welcome.
Yeah!
Whoa, thanks for the welcome, guys. Sorry about the juice comment. It went with the picture, so. So I'm going to read from my book project that I did for Imagining the Book last semester. And it's, hey.
Lock it up, Margaret. Lock it up, Margaret.
So it's a series of postcards that was kind of based on the story of a woman whose marriage is falling apart, and she goes back to her family farm. And I made a book out of it as well. It's called Greetings From. We're waiting for you here on the island. Over mountain, river, sea, possibly forest, probably actually. Come all those looking for the thing, the one they want, the one that doesn't exist. And find the disappointment that has been waiting all along, since they were born, or so they said, and who could blame them? But oh well, they will start in darkness again, then start in whatever else they find, or whatever. So fuck them, we all said in unison, or almost, or maybe just one of us. I don't know. So also these are like, I don't know what they are. Some of them are kind of really short fiction. Some of them are my first attempt at poetry, so I apologize for that. Empty space vacation. I thought that I might think something different for a change. I had the face that you wanted me to have, but when I looked in the mirror, it was blank. The empty space that we were in was me. The full space that you made it was you. The emptiness that I left there was you. The emptiness I found there was me. I was in an empty space that didn't exist. You were in a full one that didn't exist. You were pacing in the space. You paced at a brisk pace, or maybe a slow one. You picked up something that wasn't there, it was broken. You tried to will it to work. I could see what was wrong, but you wouldn't let me touch it because it didn't exist. You tried to pace it back to life. You cleared your throat and spoke some non-existent sounds. Your voice sounded rusty because it didn't work and had never made a sound. I listened distractedly. You spoke again, silently repeating the same words you'd never said. Pacing, pacing. The rust was growing thicker in your throat. I nodded, but I wasn't listening. How could I listen to your silence? How could you pace in a space that didn't exist? How could you fix nothing that was broken but not real? You couldn't answer any of the questions that I never asked. The rust was too thick. Or maybe it was all the other way around. I can't remember. Explore a husband's imagined thoughts. I'd grown weary of her explanation. She was always so goddamn boring. Why did she have to overanalyze everything like that? It wasn't possible for me to make it through an entire conversation with her. I always grew weary. Recently I'd been getting weary of the conversation even before it had begun. Just thinking about it, that was enough. It wasn't entirely her fault. It was as much my own. Just as she had been built boring and not making too much sense, I had been built without patience. Or maybe we had built ourselves into those things. In any case, we were incompatible. We should have gone our separate ways, but instead we were about to board an airplane and be hurled through the sky together. Here we were, in a crowd of early morning travelers, shuffling obediently along the labyrinthine queue, looking with longing toward the point where we would finally be able to remove our shoes and present our Ziploc travel-sized liquids for inspection, invisibly tied to one another. I felt that I could spend my whole life running away from her, or I could spend it running towards her, and the result would be the same. She nudged me out of my reverie, and I noticed that a gap had opened up before me. The line had advanced, and I'd missed it. The crowd behind us was growing restless. I could feel the weight of their discontent pushing against my back. It was like a strong gust on those days when the streets of the city were like wind tunnels, when running felt like walking, and walking felt like no effort at all, but standing still was hard as soon as you noticed you were doing it. It's called A Quick Note from Cow Watching Over Its Newborn. She lived inside the calf, in her belly, in the bile, twisted through her bowels, balled up tight in every bone, breathed out in every breath, was bowled over by her every urge, had waited with bated breath for her birth, had watched her for her first bite, and subsequent bumps. She knew her through and through, lived through her anew. Reverse birth, and that was everything. She couldn't breathe when the small heifer was out of sight. A lump of fear would rise up in her throat, and she thought her heart would break. She thought that the fear was the calf inside of her. She thought that the ball of fear was a ball of bald and rolled up bovine rolling through her. It rose up and kissed her throat every day, then slid away when the lost and longed for embodiment of its being came back into the world owned by her eye. Her dreams were made of the maddening fear. It rolled all night, over and under, and all around every other fear that tried to gain momentum in the monopolized nightmare. And yet she slept. She slept all day. She slept when she was asleep, and she slept when she was awake, with her eyes wide open and her mouth wide open and her mind shut tight. But she never slept. She was awake all night. She was awake when she was waking, and awake when she was asleep. She couldn't dream of anything because her heart was broken, was waiting with a painful urge to break. It was broken tomorrow and will break the day before, and today it didn't exist. There was no time, only inevitability and the certainty of time's continued passing. She always had the same time twice, then twice again. She knew what was waiting at the end of time, more time. Greetings from that awkward post-marital moment. I offer you something, one unhappiness. You offer me one thing in return, the next misery. And if we could only hasten something slightly more interesting, perhaps we could meet somewhere else, where we would eat our thumbs and suggest novel liberties, implicating the worst of ourselves, then oppose them, as we oppose our thumbs and any breathable business that offends natural law, like carbon monoxide. How can we insult the gods that don't exist if not through hate and rage? But we won't smile or plead with them, because the blood-drenched impulses don't take them, as they take the rest of us, as they take our words, those meaningless dribs and drabs. So these are all really pleasant pictures. Wish you were here in the pasture where the cows are fed. She looked around as she closed the gate behind her, dragging the wooden railings back onto their perches and reconnecting the wire of the electric fence. The farm was set amidst rolling wooden hills, with cleared pastures nestled at the bottom of a small valley. The cows slept in the forested areas on the hilltops, from which they had by now fully appeared, poised to make their downward charge, as they did each morning upon hearing the siren call of the heavy diesel-fueled engine. She gripped the tractor's steering wheel and watched the herd bear down on her, the inertia of their heavy bodies sweeping them towards the bottom of the hill, their round bellies swinging back and forth as they ran, powerless to check their own momentum. She shuddered. We do amazing things here on Wednesday evening, dinner date. Two people met in a restaurant named after small onions. They spoke of nothing and nonsense. They shared empty thoughts over empty cups of coffee. They were too unstable to speak. Objects are stable, but ideas are not. Even proximity to small onions, which can produce tears, will not produce stability. They sent each other blank telepathic messages containing all of their respective wisdoms and smiled to themselves, but not at the empty chair across from them. They were each of them lost in their own thoughts. How else could they have been so candid with one another but to be completely closed off and silent? Was there any way to be wholly forthright and honest other than to be absolutely quiet, they wondered? The sound of silence was the only one that didn't exist. It was just an idea and far too unstable to be possible. They didn't know any of the answers to the questions that they had posed, so they picked up their coats, put on their hats, and walked out into the cold, snowy night. Don't forget me in that moment that we met. You were sitting on a train opposite me. We were upstairs. That's where I always liked to sit, erroneously believing that most other commuters would not make the effort to climb the stairs, and that the compartment would be relatively empty. I wondered whether everyone else in the crowded car had had the same thought, or if they had their own reasons for being upstairs. The view, for example, the one we couldn't see because it was dark. It was beautiful in the morning, though, I knew. I was most often miserable in the morning and disinclined to appreciate it. "Oh, you're so miserable in the morning," he said. "But you didn't exist in real life then, so I could only imagine you saying it. You, on the other hand, were always cheerful. It made me smile to picture your happy imagined features. It was a simple matter at this hour when it was too dark to make out anything tangible outside the train. But that was before you were actually sitting on the train opposite me, which you now were." "What? How could that be? You were always in the window, in the dark, not in the real train." I was confused. I cast furtive glances in your direction, tried not to stare. I didn't want to alarm the person over whom I assumed I had superimposed your features. I tried all of my tricks against bad vision, squinting, crossing my eyes, blinking determinedly. There was no change. The imagined face was still on what looked like a real person. I wanted to walk over and touch it, just to check. But I thought that I had better not. It seemed like the right thing to not do. So then what? What could be done? I couldn't not speak to you, could I? How very indecision, how very typical, how very going nowhere I always was. My heart raced and rattled around as I finally spoke to you. You born of my imagination. You also apparently born of your parents. Who are you? Why have you been hiding in a dark window where only I could see you for so long? Why did you come out? Of course, I didn't actually say that. It might have frightened you. Instead, I said hello. I asked if we had met before. Have we met before? I didn't think you gave me any points for originality, but maybe you weren't operating on a point system. Because somehow, and for some reason, you decided to speak words to me in return. "Oh no, I don't think so." You smiled politely. A pause. I looked away, and then I looked back at you. You were still there. "Are you real?" I couldn't help but ask, even though I was trying not to give myself away. "I don't understand." You looked uneasy. "Nothing, never mind. The question of whether or not you were made of a human body was too ridiculous to say aloud. I'm sorry," I continued. "I didn't mean to embarrass you. It's complicated, what I'm thinking and what I should actually say. It gets confusing in here." I pointed to my head. "I think most people are like that." That was comforting, I thought. But then I wondered, was the window version of you confused as well? I couldn't recall, but I wanted you to go on. I wanted you to say that perplexing things happened to you too, that sometimes you inexplicably saw people you didn't think existed reflected in darkened pieces of glass. Me, for example. That you got me. That I was waiting for you to confess that you had imagined me, but had never imagined me to be correspondingly real. That you had known me for years. It would have been the transcendental moment for which I had been waiting my entire life. I don't know if you saw the expectation in my eyes. This is my stop. Have a good night. You walked towards the stairs. The train didn't stop for several more miles. That's it. I forgot to say, these are all in random order, so it's not. So it doesn't make any sense.